When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
Choice Hotels get you more for your money so you can maximize any road trip. Like these road trippers making waffles and eating fresh fruit in their natural habitat. The breakfast area at a Comfort Inn. I just love seeing a vacation maximized in the wild. Check into more. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
This content may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion advised.
She said, "I hate those stupid stairs. The bloody man is scary."
One of the clown dolls sitting at the bar turned his head toward him.
The police told her that the night prior, 3 people were murdered in the next town over.
From Killer Podcasts, true tales of the occult, otherworldly encounters, unexplainable events. This is Disturbed True Paranormal. Hello, and welcome back to the show. This week, we're bringing you 5 haunting stories you'll wish were taken to the grave. So sit back, listen closely, and dive into the horror. First, a story from Reddit user Max Mindsets. I watched myself die.
This happened last year, but it still messes with my head. I was in the hospital after a routine surgery. Nothing crazy, just getting my gallbladder removed. Everything was supposed to be smooth. I woke up in recovery, feeling okay, but about an hour later, I suddenly felt really cold, dizzy, and like my heart was beating out of my chest. I told the nurse something felt wrong, and that's the last thing I remember from inside my body. What I remember next was watching the whole thing happen like I was standing in the corner of the room. I could see myself lying on the bed, pale as hell, with a bunch of nurses rushing in, alarms going off. One of them was doing chest compressions. Another was calling for a crash cart. I remember thinking, holy shit, I'm dying. But I didn't feel panic. I felt weirdly calm, detached, like it wasn't really me down there, just a shell. I could hear them shouting numbers, shouting my name, even yelling something like, "We're losing him." But I just watched. I even looked down at my arms and realized I didn't have arms, not physical ones. I was just this floating awareness, kind of like being in a dream, except more vivid than anything I've ever experienced. And then it got even weirder. I felt this pull, not like someone was grabbing me, but more like gravity started working in a different direction. Like I was about to be sucked upward somewhere, I don't know where. And right before it happened, I heard this voice in my head, totally calm, just say, "Not yet." Next thing I knew, I jolted awake with a mask on my face, gasping like I'd been underwater. My chest hurt like hell from the compressions. Turns out, I flatlined for almost 2 minutes. Heart completely stopped, but somehow I came back. I didn't tell anyone what I saw, not at first. But I'll say this. I was more alive during those 2 minutes than I've ever felt in my whole life. And whatever I was, wherever I was floating, it wasn't nothing. It wasn't a dream. I know what I saw.
Our next story is told by Adam C. Alderson about the Bloody Man.
I'm a very normal, simple 41-year-old guy with zero history of mental illness, apart from a little anxiety. No major medical issues, no drug use. I drank in my teens and 20s when I'd go out to bars, but I never had any bad habits or anything like that. It started when I was 5 or 6, so around 1988 or 89. I used to see what I called the Bloody Man walking up and down the stairs in our house. I can't remember his face. Not sure if it's because I never looked at it or because he didn't have one. I just remember it was never in the middle of the night, but always around bedtime. He had a bandage on his head that was soaked with blood, and he wore a hospital gown. I remember having a deep feeling that I knew this wasn't right, but I wasn't scared. I'm not sure if that lack of fear was because I was somehow told not to be scared, or if I was just too young to know to be scared. Anyway, this person I kept seeing, I would later learn was my uncle. He had been beaten in the head with a baseball bat, came home, his brain swelled while he slept, and he was rushed to the hospital in the morning. He died a few days later. That was August of 1982. I was born in December of 1983. There's much more to the story, his life that night, but I'll hold off on that for now. I saw the Bloody Man maybe 15 to 30 times over the years. Then my mom and I moved out to get our own place. This was my grandfather's house, and we were gone about 5 years. When I was around 12 or 13, we moved back. I never saw the Bloody Man again, but that was far from the last strange thing that happened in that house. About 5 or 6 months after moving back, I was showing my little sister how to play Sonic the Hedgehog. As I was explaining it to her, clear as day, I heard a female voice say her name. My sister immediately got up and went to the door, calling out, "Yeah, Ma?" I just sat there, frozen in fear for 2 reasons. First, I knew for a fact that wasn't our mom's voice. It was our grandmother's, and she'd been dead for 10 years. Second, I knew something my sister didn't. The voice hadn't come from downstairs. It came from right at our feet by the foot of the bed. I stayed frozen while my sister yelled again for our mom, who said she'd been washing dishes and never called her. My sister came back to the bed sulking. "What's the matter?" I asked. She said, "I hate those stupid stairs. The Bloody Man is scary." So I started asking her, who told her about the Bloody Man? Was it one of my friends? Anybody else? She was shocked I even knew who the Bloody Man was. She started crying, insisting no one told her, and begging me to believe her that she really saw him. She was about 5 at the time, the same age I used to see him. And then things got worse. After we heard my grandmother's voice, something started happening during sleepovers. My bedroom door would shake, violently. At first we thought it was my stepdad messing with us, but we started opening the door as it was shaking. No one was ever there. Once we realized that, it got terrifying. Every sleepover for about a year, the door would shake and these horrible claw-like scratching sounds would drag down the door. My friends and I would all fight to hide in the corner of the bed whenever it started. So if you're keeping count, that's me and my sister who saw the Bloody Man and heard the voice, and 3 of my friends who witnessed the shaking and the scratching. 5 people. But believe it or not, the story doesn't end there. We sold the house about a year later and moved a couple of towns over. The reason we moved back when I was 12 or 13 in the first place was because my grandfather had a series of mini strokes and was in a wheelchair, so my mom moved in to take care of him. After we moved out again, I told my mom I was surprised she sold her childhood home. She told me all the bad memories had replaced the good ones, and then she said something that chilled me. Plus, Grampy started creeping me out toward the end. It turns out he'd started telling her, "Your brother's still here. Every night, up and down those goddamn stairs. Up and down, up and down." He saw the bloody man too. His own son. But the craziest part happened years later. About 7 or 8 years after we sold the house, a guy who bought it saw my uncle in a gym. He beelined for him and demanded to know what the hell is in that house. He, his wife, and 2 of his kids have been seeing my uncle around the house. I made it a point to walk by the house, hoping to catch someone outside. One day I did. I saw the youngest son leaving. I introduced myself and asked him what they'd seen. He said he was too young to remember much, but his mom, dad, and 2 brothers used to constantly see my uncle behind them, in mirrors. They got rid of the mirrors and it stopped, he said. I don't quite understand that part because mirrors had nothing to do with it for me, but still, that's 3 people in my family, 3 of my friends, and 4 people from a completely different family who all saw or heard the same thing. I'd give anything to know exactly what the hell was going on in that house all those years.
This next story comes from Reddit user FantasticBook2396. I think we met an angel. Narrated by Danny Boyle.
The details in this story are a bit fuzzy. After all, it happened more than 35 years ago. I'll do my best to remember what I can and fill in the blanks where memory fails. It was 1988. I was 5 years old. My family, my mom, dad, brother, sister, and our aunt, we were all on a road trip from Alabama to Orlando, Florida. We were somewhere around the halfway mark, maybe 3 or 4 hours in, when we stopped at a gas station next to a 7-Eleven to stretch our legs and grab some snacks. As we all climbed out of the car, my aunt called out that she was taking my brother and sister to the bathroom. My dad stood by the car, waiting for me to hop out. That's when she appeared. An older woman. The memory is foggy, but I remember she wore a yellow dress, a matching hat with some kind of flower on it, pink shoes, and these large sunglasses. One second she wasn't there, and the next she was, standing right next to my dad. He jumped back and said, "Shit, you scared me." But the woman didn't respond to him. Instead, she turned to my mom and said calmly, "She is going to die." My mom looked confused. What? Who's going to die? The woman turned her head, looked right at me, and repeated, She is going to die." My dad didn't take kindly to that. He cursed at the woman and told her to leave us alone. Without another word, she turned and walked into the parking lot. My mom was shaken. She's always been superstitious, deeply religious, and very much a believer in the paranormal. My dad, he chalked it up to a crazy woman saying crazy things. Just some nut job. When my aunt and siblings came back, we piled into the car. No one mentioned the woman. We just kept driving. We made it to Orlando. Visited our cousins. 5 days passed. But my mom couldn't shake what the woman had said. Her gut wouldn't let it go. On a whim, she brought me to a hospital in Orlando to get me checked out, just to be safe. And that's when the doctors found 2 blood clots in my left leg. They didn't require surgery, thankfully, but I was hospitalized and placed on blood thinners. They told my mom if we hadn't caught it when we did, things could have ended very differently. I stayed in the hospital for a week, and then we prepared to head home. On the drive back, my parents made a decision. They wanted to stop at that same gas station. They asked the manager if there were security cameras from the day of our stop, and after some convincing, they were allowed to review the footage. Here's the part that still gives me chills. On the footage, you can see our car pulling it. My brother and sister rush out. My aunt escorts them to the restroom. You can see me, my dad, and my mom near the car. But no woman. They're clearly speaking to someone, but there's no one standing next to them. It looks like they're talking to empty air. My mom swears the woman was real. My dad remembers her too. They both agree. This wasn't a shared hallucination. They saw her. To this day, my mom believes she was an angel, a guardian, something beyond our understanding. My dad still calls it a coincidence, maybe a glitch in the tape. But how do you explain it? A woman appears, says I'm going to die, disappears, isn't captured on camera, and it turns out I was, in fact, on the brink of something deadly. I don't know who or what she was, but I'm alive today because of her. Was it an angel? A ghost? Something else entirely? I'll never know. But what I do know, what I believe, is that if my mom hadn't listened to that voice, I might not be here telling you this story.
Want more Disturbed? Get episodes ad-free and early, and check out bonus content we know you'll enjoy on our Patreon. It's the best way to support the show if you like what we do. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the podcast. Our next story is about trauma cleaners entering an eerie scene. Narrated by the talented Gregory James.
Back in the mid to late 90s, I worked as a trauma scene cleaner, which meant I'd clean houses in which homicides, suicides, and unattended deaths occurred. An unattended death scene can be worse than most of the other scenes due to the smell. Typically, this happens when someone who was living alone dies of natural causes and it goes unnoticed for some time. One afternoon, we were dispatched to a house in a suburban area. The neighborhood wasn't anything too fancy, but it was a nice place for families to live, with kids playing in the street. The house we were dispatched to seemed out of place. It hadn't been kept up at all. The overgrown brown grass was full of weeds, and a pile of junk sat next to the driveway. We'd been called by the homeowner's daughter and son-in-law. The lady who had died went unnoticed for about 10 days. The daughter lived out of town and must not have had regular communication with her mom. I think a neighbor had gone to check on her and then called police for a welfare check. When police entered the home, they discovered her body in the hallway. She died of a heart attack. The coroner removed the body, but there was still plenty of work to be done. When a body lays dead for days, several things can happen. I won't go into all the details, but sometimes the gases build up from decomposition and the body pops. Then there's the leakage that happens just before. A fatty film usually builds inside and covers pretty much every surface of the house. And there are thousands of maggots and flies. This was the situation we were dealing with at this house. The body had been found just before popping. Our job was going to be a big one, as we had to clean the whole house and get rid of the smell. When you walk into a trauma scene like this, the smell is the first thing that hits you. It penetrates everything you're wearing. Even if you've got a full bodysuit on, you still smell like corpse for days. The house smelled just as bad as many others we'd cleaned, but what really freaked us out were all the dolls. I'm not talking about a doll collection in a glass display. In every room, there were creepy dolls, all posed like people. In the living room, all the sofas and chairs were occupied by dolls, like they were having a family gathering. There were dolls on every chair around the dining room table, with plates and glasses in front of them, as if they were expecting dinner to be served. In the den, there were dolls set up to watch TV, and there was even a little bar area in the room where dolls sat on stools waiting for drinks. Some of them had magazines in their hands. In the bedrooms, there were dolls laying in beds and sitting on chairs. Most of the dolls were big, and they all had weird clothes on. Many of them looked like clowns. Some were ventriloquist dummies. In the bedrooms, there were dolls laying in beds and sitting on chairs. One of my crew members noticed that only one room was void of dolls, the master bedroom, where the deceased woman had slept. Stranger still, in addition to the doorknob lock on her bedroom door, she had a deadbolt. This was a job that would take us a few days to complete. We had to remove all the carpets and clean the walls. We asked the daughter and son-in-law if there was anything they wanted to keep, warning them not to enter the house since the smell was so overwhelming. When I mentioned the dolls, the daughter looked puzzled. She said, "I don't know, but it's okay to throw any toys away." I told her there were at least 100 dolls in there. She looked at me in confusion and said she didn't know anything about them. All she wanted from the house was family photo albums and important documents. Meanwhile, her husband went into the garage to collect a few items that had belonged to her dad. My guys started collecting the dolls and putting them in huge plastic bags. I remember the son-in-law looking puzzled as we dragged the bags out of the house. He'd never seen these dolls before. On our last day at the house, we got a really late start and ended up trying to finish everything up in the evening. The final room we cleaned was the den, where most of the clown dolls were. Suddenly, one of my crew members ran out of the house yelling, "Fuck this!" We asked him what was wrong, and he said that as he was putting a doll in a bag, one of the clown dolls sitting at the bar turned his head toward him. We all joked with him about it afterwards, but deep down, I wouldn't trust that these dolls were harmless. The way they were all over the house creeped me out, especially since the deceased lady's own family didn't know about them. They certainly took over the house.
Our final story is a listener submission sent in by disturbed listener Anthony. If you'd like to submit a story of your own, go to disturbedpodcast.com/submit. You just might hear your story on the show. Being too friendly can put you in grave danger. Narrated by Brian Jeffords.
My father is a no-nonsense type of man who brushes everything off. I've asked him and my grandma multiple times throughout the years about this incident, and the story never changes. Now, I go and ask my aunt, however, and I get a whole new side to the story. But let me start from the beginning. My grandmother claimed to be something of a clairvoyant, something I halfway believe after the things she's done. Just to give an example, once when I was a little younger, my grandma called my mother a dozen times in one day because she was having a vision of me bruised and bloodied in some kind of danger. Well, lo and behold, that very night, I was ejected from a car at 105 miles per hour and medevac to the nearest hospital. Guess my mom should have listened to her. So, it was 1978. My dad was about 10, his older sister 14, and his younger sister 6. My grandmother worked as a bartender in a nearby bar in Elwood City, Pennsylvania. She was the type of person to be friendly with everyone and anyone. She'd tell a stranger her entire life story, and she wouldn't bat an eye at including personal details while she did it. She'd mention where she worked, where she lived, her kids, anything. She did it so often that she didn't even remember doing it, and that came back to bite her one time in particular. One night, she's at her bar and tending to a particularly drunk customer. He starts telling my grandma about, quote, his bitch and her kid back home. He's irate about them, rambling on about how he cut that bitch's head off before he bursts into laughter. She was put off by it, but figured it was some sort of drunken banter or him trying to be funny, at least until she reached for his glass. When her hand brushed his, images flooded her mind. A road sign for Route 65, a building she recognized, and a bloody, decapitated head depicting some poor woman. She backed away, shaking at the realization that he was confessing his sins, not just making a sick joke. She regained her composure and shut him off while she endured some more of his attempts at humor. She survived the night, and the next day she went to the police station to tell them everything that happened, including her vision. The police told her that the night prior, 3 people were murdered in the next town over. She agreed to go on a ride with them, quickly finding the spot she saw in her vision. As soon as they got there, my grandma's vision was confirmed. A decapitated head of a woman, exactly as she'd seen it. Now, because he'd been a patron at her bar, the police had a name now, at least, Michael Atkinson. He also became the chief suspect of the other murders from last night, a 25-year-old woman and her daughter. The police didn't catch him right away, though. A couple of days went by, and my grandma, my grandpa, and her kids left to go to the grocery store. On their return, they found the front door slightly ajar, and my grandma assumed her kids had left it like that. She was scolding them as everyone walked inside when they heard a loud thump from upstairs. My grandmother instantly freaked and hurriedly pushed my grandpa to call the police. When he lifted the phone to his ear, silence. No dial tone. Their eyes met, wide with the understanding that something dangerous was about to happen. They all sprinted out the front door, leaving the groceries in a pile in the foyer. They called the police from the neighbor's house. When the cops showed up, they searched the house and found none other than Michael Atkinson upstairs. He was standing behind a doorway with a large knife when they found him. He told the police that he was planning on killing my grandma and her kids that day, that my grandma had basically told him where she lives that night at the bar. I almost didn't get to exist because my grandma was the friendliest person alive. It's a good thing she trusted herself when she did, because if it wasn't for her gift, she might have ended up being one of his victims instead of the person who helped catch him. Careful with the personal details, folks. You never know if you're talking to a person or a devil.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Disturbed True Paranormal, a production from the Disturbed team at Killer Podcasts. I'm your host, Doug Bailey. Our producer is Noah Fouts, audio engineering by Nathan Corson and Will Pritz. For more chilling stories, behind-the-scene content, and early access, support us at patreon.com/disturbedpodcast. Until next time, friends, stay safe out there. Hello, listeners. We're committed to making scary good podcasts for you to enjoy. With the lineup expanding to twice a week and new shows and formats coming your way, we want to make sure we're giving you exactly the horror you're listening for. We created a survey to gather feedback about the show and to learn more about you as a listener, to make the best Disturbed that we can. Interested? Go to theshowsurvey.com/disturbed to take the quick anonymous survey and be entered into a drawing for a $100 Amazon gift card. Again, that's theshowsurvey.com/disturbed. Every week, we'll select a different winner for participating. And hey, thanks.